You can't give God a time frame because you can ask for a certain thing and God knows better than us when we're supposed to have it or when we're ready for it. We can ask for something and not be ready for it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode on the Divinely Disruptive podcast. I'm your host, Jane Powers. Today in our studio, we have a famous face and a beautiful face, Gentille in the house. You may have seen her on TV on Marrying Millions on Lifetime TV. Now, I cannot wait to have this conversation about love, relationships, dating, and what it's like to have a lot of money and talent. I mean, I just can't
you're too
imagine.
Sweet.
So Gentille, welcome to our studio.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Sweetie.
And tell me a little bit about yourself for people who maybe never met you or even seen you on TV.
Oh God, like where would you like me to start?
Maybe a little bit of where you're from,
Okay.
some hobbies, and what you do for a living.
Oh, okay, great. Hi. So my name is Gentille. I am Cambodian Chinese French. I am from Houston, Texas. I've been in Vegas for 20 years now. I am a real estate agent, but mainly an investor. I'm an agent just to help people, right? What else? What was the other question?
Good. How about hobbies? Yeah.
Hobbies. Gosh, I'm very open-minded and laid back. If I have the energy to, I will do anything. You know, I love hiking. I love yoga, Pilates. But a lot of times I think my favorite hobby might be sleeping these days.
That's why you look good. People do not complain about lots of rest because it's all about beauty sleep.
Absolutely.
So you look just as good, if not better, in real life.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jane.
No filter, no Photoshop. I'm like,
Thank
here we
you.
are. Now, what is it like being on reality TV? And I saw just a clip on TikTok, I believe, but the show Marrying Millions. How did you even get on the show and what was that experience like?
Oh gosh, I think I've repeated this story like 1,000 times already, but I don't mind it. I got on the show because Brian, the boyfriend at the time, now this was in 2018 when we got casted. So he found the casting and submitted us without my knowledge, right? So when they were interested and wanted to actually meet us both, on Zoom, that's when he told me, oh, by the way, sweetie, I submitted us to the show. They like us now, so they want to meet. I'm like, what? What show? Like what? He's like, yeah. He goes, it'll be fun. I'm like, all right, fine. So we went through the whole audition process. Yeah.
So how do you even prepare yourself for TV? Because I love public speaking and being social, but being filmed and not knowing what to say and how to be, how do you even mentally prepare for that?
I had no clue what I was in for. So I actually turned it down the first time after they said, okay, hey, we want you guys. We're really interested. I think you guys are perfect for the show. They came back and I'm like, actually, and Brian and I were not really getting along well either, even before the show filmed. So I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't think I can do it. And Brian and I are not really getting along. So I don't think we're going to go forward. So they waited a little bit longer, I think maybe 6 months to a year later, and they came back. And they're like, hey, are you guys, talking again at least or something like that, right? And so we did start talking again during that time. And that's how we decided to get on the show. But I wasn't ready for it. I mean, I didn't know. And I barely watch reality shows. So I had no clue. So after I agreed, right before I agreed, I started watching maybe a couple episodes of whatever show, Housewives or something, just to see what it was all about. And I'm like, well, I guess they couldn't really make me say anything. It would have to come out of my mouth, or even what we do. I don't think it's acting, So that's why I agreed to it and going, might as well give it a shot. It's an opportunity, right?
No, and thank you for sharing. I asked because I had another friend who was on MTV, Are You the One? And that one is a little bit more manipulative and they make you burst out in tears, create drama. So even she told me, hey, I did not originally want to be on the show. She said that she had an opportunity to make some cash, but I did not realize a lot of people on TV, it wasn't for the reason we would assume.
Right.
Like yourself, you're like,
Right.
I actually never started this conversation of being on the show. And your man at the time was like, we're doing this, honey.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I guess we are.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure people have asked you this. Do you regret it?
No, actually, I don't. I enjoyed my time on it, and maybe due to the fact that they actually didn't make me look too bad, right? And I know that every reality show is filmed a little bit differently. Most of the shows, I think, are only about 6 weeks or maybe 2 months max. Our show was filmed for like 9 months to a year. So everything that happened in real time. And the premise of the show was, one is rich and one is poor, right? So a lot of what happened on the show were things that were going on in our lives live at that time. So the producers would call and go, hey, what's going on in your life? Anything happening, anything fun, la, la, la. So we would tell them the story and they're like, okay, well, that sounds like a cool thing. We'll come out and shoot that. So it wasn't scripted. There, nothing. It wasn't planned. Nothing was planned.
No, and I really enjoyed watching you because being an Asian American woman, your hustle, your drive, and just your discipline and who you were was so fascinating. So I'm sure a lot of the fans that you have, it's a good thing. Like people actually look up to you because so many people, I've seen bits and pieces of reality shows. It's almost like people get famous for the wrong reasons,
Right.
or maybe they had a really embarrassing moment.
Right.
But for you, I would say it was quite the opposite, Gentille. I feel like you were just very much about, hey, I'm not settling. I remember there was a quick scene I saw, I believe it was with you and a group of girls, and they were all saying like, you're not going to settle. You could technically have anyone you want. So if you're going to be with this individual, then he better level up himself, right?
Right.
So this might be a personal question. How do you feel about being the breadwinner and making more than a man? Because that is a common thing in modern day society now, is a lot of women are finally taking charge in their abilities, their talents, and not being afraid to say, hey, I'm a multi-million-dollar woman and I work hard for it. So what was that like dating someone where you made more money, and how did that affect your relationship?
Wow. Yeah, that's a loaded question. It's a great question though. And I do get that question quite a bit. And it has been not easy, right? So, we have this, as a woman, we're coming out now, we're supporting ourselves. We don't need a man. And, it's like the world is changing. Society is changing. So as far as the dating world is for me, it was already tough before, even when I didn't have as much. But I always had this attitude of, I know who I am. I know what I'm worth. And I know that I can always make it. I never really had to ask anyone for anything my whole life, right? I always did it on my own. So I always had that kind of persona and attitude already anyway. So it was it was hard back then, but I'm very selective too. So that makes it even tougher. But now when you're successful, and now everyone knows you're successful, the whole world knows I'm, who I am. If they just look me up, they'll know who I am. So that coupled with who I am already as a person, it is quite tough to find a man. Because a man will say, yeah, I don't mind my woman having more than me, or if she's rich or whatever. They might be okay with that for a little while. But once you get into a serious relationship, after a while, it starts kind of eating away at the man, I think. They start the intimidation or whatever it is. It's internal, right? So after a while, the man goes, okay, well, she's making more than me, or she's making all the decisions. And I don't want to be that person. I really don't. I really would love a man to just come and take charge. And he doesn't even have to have a lot of money or be that successful. If he has that attitude with me, like, you know what, I'm going to take charge, honey. We're going to do this. And I'm going to be like, yes, I'm with you, honey. But it is tough because in the back of a man's mind, with me at least, they know that I'm successful. And to some degree, that makes them feel less than a man at some point, So it's tough though.
No, and that's very real. Thank you for sharing candidly, because even myself, I can really connect with you in that way. Is being Korean, and I shared off the record, I was a professional golfer. So that intensity, maybe you can see it in me, is I've also been very much confident, owning my greatness, not being cocky or arrogant, but always saying, you know, I know God and a higher power created me to be a leader. I knew it at a very young age. So as I'm evolving and becoming more comfortable in my craft as well, it can turn off people a little bit, right? And I don't want to turn it into a sexist situation. However, even traditionally, men are supposed to lead the house, lead by example, especially financially. But when we show up in a relationship, it's like, wait a minute, Gentille doesn't need me to be confident. Gentille doesn't need me to be successful, but it's really much about ownership of oneself and equal partnership.
Right.
Like, I have my gifts and talents, you have yours. Now, if you could tell me your ideal gentleman, what would this person look like? How would they sound? And how do you feel around that person?
God,
if you don't have
darn it, I should have brought my list.
Oh, you have
Yeah,
one?
I have a list that I wrote. Now, it has changed a little bit over the years, depending on what's happened in the past. But I have a list. Height, not necessarily hair or color or anything like that, but the way they are, they're generous and they're open and they're honest and they have a good heart. And they're ready for commitment. So there's a whole list that I have. Straight, not married. Before it used to be no children. So I'm okay with children now, depending on how old they are, right? So it's changed a little bit. So there's no perfect guy. I know that at the end of the day, for me, I just have to be attracted. That's it. I think that's the main thing for me. And I will know usually in the first 5 minutes of meeting a guy and talking to him if I'm going to bang him or if he's just going to be in the friend zone forever, you know?
Hey, listen, you got to be direct, especially with what you got going, okay? You got to be very direct. I'm like, are you sure you're not partially Korean? Because even when I met my husband, I'll keep it short and cute, but we got married and engaged in 9 months. And so similar to what you just shared, I was very much don't waste my time, you know, respectfully. And I was in a place in my life where I was done goofing around. And I told this gentleman, he was 6 years older. So I was very ballsy, but I looked at him and I said, listen, if you're here to sleep around and look for a good time, it's not me. So either you get it together and approach me properly or have a great day. I'm not the one to mess with. And so 9 months down the road, my mother, God bless her Asian spirit, she's like, you marry my daughter, you take care of her. And my mom didn't even really know him or what he was about, but his spirit, his energy. So I like what you mentioned too, is very often people who have done inner working, a lot of healing, a lot of therapy, trial and error, we just know. We know it's going to work out or we know it's not going to work out.
Absolutely.
Even friendship, sisters, girlfriends, all of it. So echoing to what you shared, I'm very much the same, you know, I'm married now, but even as I'm interacting with women in Vegas, whether it's professional or personal, I know in the first minute or two, okay, do we have a vibe or a bond? Does it flow or does it feel really awkward?
Right.
So
because we all can't get along, right?
Exactly.
I wish we could, but we can't. Were you talking about your current husband?
Yes. Oh. I'm like, you met him behind the scenes. I'm like, here he is.
That's amazing.
And so trial and error, because I went for the typical arrogant, cocky athletes, CEOs in suits. And I learned quickly, okay, as a strong, independent woman, you have to find somebody that not only complements your energy, but makes space for your big light. And so I feel that for you. I'm not your sidekick, but I feel that for you if you don't already have one in line. But somebody
so many
that creates space. You're like, where do I even start, right? Now, you know, we talked about relationships and love. How is it making girlfriends out here? I know you said you lived here for 20 years, but how has that been, including your transition into health and wealth and success? Has that been tough? Battling jealousy or envy even?
Absolutely. I think in the course of everyone's lifetime, we go through that journey. And friends and relationships, it's the same thing. Even with friendship, you go through people, you meet people, or God put certain people in your path for certain reason, you know, to learn or to teach them something, and then they just, you know, pass through. And then there's some that stay. So I've been here 20 years. I have a lot of acquaintances, many, many, hundreds, right? But my true friends, I have maybe a handful. And even those, sometimes they only stay in your life for a certain period of time too. Even friends that you've known for years and years and years, things come up, or everyone have their own lives, so they just pass through as well. So it's just really tough with relationships of any type. For me, it's always been kind of a not a challenge, I would say, because I'm wiser now. So I'm able to not let things and people affect me like it used to when I was in my 20s and 30s. Now it's kind of like, if you want to stay, you can stay. If you want to go, you can go. I don't care too much, or I don't get too emotional about people and things and situations at all. That's the only way I'm able to survive these days.
No, and I can totally see you live that way, because shout out to Deluxe Magazine. We met at the Sterling Club, and there was a lot of people, and I'm all about being friendly.
Yeah.
So I like what you said about acquaintances. Is I've learned quickly, Jane, don't quickly label people as friends, because sometimes you need time to see how they move. You need time to see what they do for a living.
Right.
Because everything we do as individuals can affect somebody negatively or positively, right? So when I interacted with you, it was literally when I was leaving the event. It was so weird, just from the side of my view. It wasn't even a direct. I was like, I gotta go. And then I had my handmade candle in my backpack. I told my husband later, I'm like, I gave her my candle. I don't know what just happened. I just gave it to her.
Thank you.
But the point was, you were just this refreshing spirit. And even the name of my podcast, Divinely Disruptive, it's not random that you are here. I love energies that are sensual, divine, feminine, masculine, all at once, but they also disrupt flow. So as I was leaving, Gentille, it was like, oh shoot, I gotta go. Like, I'm late, but I couldn't help but notice you and the way that you carried yourself. And just even sitting here with you, I can see that you care enough, but at the same time, you don't care.
Yeah.
And we need that. We need those harsh boundaries, because when we care too much about the wrong people, we only end up hurting, whether it's personal or professional.
Absolutely.
And managing expectations.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you know this.
Oh God.
And so
how don't have any expectations.
Yeah. So when you were, maybe young and dumb, because we were all there.
Yeah.
How did you deal with maybe love, loss, expectations that weren't met? Because a lot of people listening and watching right now, they're probably thinking, well, I'm not like you. I don't know how to stand up tall and say, well, don't really care. They're just acquaintances. How did you deal with that in your younger years? Because we all want validation and we want to feel like we belong.
Absolutely. Well, so what I do, and I guess I'll pass it on here because I don't share a lot of that on my social media. So not only people that have known me for a while, I've introduced this Buddhism to. So I chant. It's called Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.
Wow.
So it's Buddhist. And have you ever seen the movie with Tina Turner? What's Love Got to Do with It?
Not the movie, but the song.
Yeah, you never saw the movie?
No.
Oh, you have to watch it. So it's amazing. And, she was beat up her whole entire life by Ike, her husband, right? And then at the end, one of her backup singers introduced her to a practice. And it's a Buddhist practice. And that's what I do. So when I was going through, and this, I've been practicing for about 15 years now. And it's basically a meditation and a chant. And I swear to God, this is what's gotten me to where I am now internally. Internally, it's you learn how to control your emotions, and you can't control anything, no one or anything outside of yourself, only you. You can only control how it affects you. That's the only thing you can do. And this is what this Buddhism has done for me. And what I do is I just pay it forward and I pass it, or I introduce it to everyone else that comes around me. So everyone that is in my circle knows exactly what this is. And it's big. I mean, it's all over the world. It's in 192 countries and territory. It's divided into a lot of different languages. I mean, we're all commonly bound together by this meditation, because our main purpose and mission is for world peace. And the only way for us to have world peace is to pass it on to the next person, or that someone that we can affect, and help them in their journey of self-discovery and peace and serenity. And a lot of it is internal, right? We all have the answer within us, everything in life. So now with this practice, and I practice every day, like I chant every single day, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Even when I'm driving, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. If I get stressed, someone cuts me off, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Yeah. And I also use the practice because it is an active meditation. So you use the practice to attract, right? So whatever it is that you want, everything that I've gotten in my life, honestly, every materialistic thing and even the way, everything in my life, I got from this practice. You know, I asked for it and I said, I want this, universe. If this is good for me, if this person is good for me, please let me have it. If this thing is good for me, then I wish it and I want it. If it's not, make it go away. It's amazing.
Yeah, what you just shared is gems right there. As you're sharing, I'm like, I really honor people who have a spiritual practice, because people who, we just talked about this, alignment, flow, whether it's the first time you've met somebody or the last, people who practice a deeper spiritual practice that is inward, inner healing. Like you just said, somehow we just kind of flow and attract each other. Yeah. Right. So it makes sense. The way that you are and the way that I felt in your presence is when you do inner working, when you have a spiritual practice, it's amazing how we can identify, okay, this person also is clearly practicing something. Yes. Because for us to be present right now is not an easy thing. There's so much distractions, technology, social media. So to be present, it sounds so cheesy. It is a gift. Even us sitting right now, just being here, listening to one another, sharing words of affirmation, enlightenment, powers of practicing spirituality, manifestation. Yes. Right. Yeah. So you kind of already segued into the next question I was going to ask you is, do you also practice any forms of manifestation, vision boards, and what does that look like for you?
Oh God, absolutely. So within this practice, I introduce it to people and I actually do it at my house first. And then depending on where they're at, I kind of introduce them to the group in their area so that you can actually practice. And we bounce things off of each other, because what people have gone through, someone else in the practice might have gone through that. And then you can help that other person. But yeah, so when I have the sessions at my house, it depends. Like certain times I'll have certain things, and one of the days would be like a vision board day. Yeah. So like once a year, I'll invite all my friends that practice with me or chant with me. And I say, okay, let's do our vision board for the year, and bring, the books and magazines and stuff, and we'll start cutting it out. So a lot of fun things that has to do with the practice as well.
That's good. Yeah. Well, you got to invite me to your annual vision board. I need accountability. Okay. Yeah. Like I mentioned off the record, I like instant gratification, instant results, but to have a community or accountability, it makes you more inspired to take it serious. Because I feel like even that word manifestation, it's such a common word, but so many people don't fully do it to the potential they could. Exactly. If we really see, we are really focused, we really believe. Yes. Like you mentioned, even on your list of people you want to be with or the things that you desire, you said it yourself, because you believe and because you feel it in your soul. Yes. It's happening and you're attracting that because you believe that you are worthy of it.
Absolutely. And you can never go, it's called cross purpose. So when you are trying to manifest, you cannot be at cross purpose with yourself. What that means is a lot of times we're like, okay, for example, I need a car, universe. I need a car. I want this car. I want this car. I want this car. And then all of a sudden you don't get it in the time frame that you're thinking, like maybe a month. You're like, okay, all right, universe, I'm going to give you a month, and then you don't get it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I guess so you become negative. So as soon as that negativity mindset steps in, now you're at cross purpose with yourself, and you've just erased your goal or whatever, whatever the manifestation, you just cut it off because you didn't believe in the universe or God enough, for it to come when it's supposed to come to you. Right. So I I call it cross purpose, but there's also other words for it, obviously. You know, I just can't think of it right now.
No, that's very enlightening because I've never heard of that particular phrase or concept. And it totally makes sense. I think you just caught me that I was doing that because even this podcast, starting a couple businesses, I had this vision, but I let things get in the way.
Yes.
And so that was huge. I think people listening and watching right now, that was something that they didn't think of.
Right.
Is we can have these manifestations, have these visions, but we can't always be selfish in figuring out exactly when.
Exactly.
Oh, that's
you
so
can't
good.
give God a time frame because you can ask for a certain thing and God knows better than us when we're supposed to have it or when we're ready for it. We can ask for something and not be ready for it. We think we are, you know, and if you're not ready for something, because we're so powerful, also, we can manifest that specific thing. But what happens is the universe says, I'm going to show you who's boss, bitch, and you'll lose it. So, you know, and I've done this with people even. Like I used to manifest people in my life, like a certain man or something that I wanted. I want him. I want him. I love him. I want him. I want him. And, you know, God was trying to tell me, no, maybe it's not going to work out. But I'm like, no, I want him. I want him. And I got him. But then like shit happened. Like afterwards, I wasn't able to be with him or them for very long. They went away and in a bad way too. So that was universe saying, you know, that wasn't really good for you. So now when I pray or when I ask or when I try to manifest things, I say to the universe that I don't want it unless it's good for me. Please only give it to me if it's right for me and it's good for me and it's for my higher good. That's it. Yeah. So you have to be careful how you ask for it too. Not just in what you ask for. And time frame, never give God a time frame. God says you'll be ready when so the universe gives you what you need first and then what you want. Mm-hmm.
You got me speechless. I'm like, did you read my journal? I'm like, I need a minute here. Adding to what you shared, I literally wrote in my journal recently, I want alignment, purpose, and fulfillment. I kid you not. I mean, I know we just started this new year, but that has been just seared in my mind. Alignment, perfect. What does that look like? Fulfillment, what does that look like? Purpose, what does that look like? So you just hit it on the head. People don't realize the difference between what they want and what they need. Same with our desire, right? Same with love versus lust. It feels so similar, yes, but it's so different. The outcome is so extreme. And I could even give you an example, and maybe you've been here before as well, but people who seek power, maybe even greed, it seems innocent, like, oh, God in the universe, get me famous, or God in the universe, give me that big deal. Okay, but be careful in how we ask what we ask for, because it may be attached to something not good for us.
Absolutely.
Like you said, it doesn't serve our soul.
Exactly. Or it may belong to someone else, you know? So I always tell my friends when they are trying to manifest too, like if you see a house that you like or a car, don't say I want that house or that car, because that house or that car or that man or that woman may belong to someone else. They're not supposed to be yours. Ask for something similar, right? Yeah. So, and the same with deeds, you know, when you're doing a good deed or thinking a good deed or whatever it is that you're trying to do that's good, if you expect even a thank you, say you spend your time, energy, and money on someone, and you have any expectation of anything coming back from that person or that act, then that act is canceled out. You haven't done shit now. Yeah. If even wanting a thank you, like, you know, if I'm going to give you money or take you to eat or whatever, even if you expect a thank you from someone, it's not sincere. So that kindness it's canceled.
Wow, that's very deep. And man, there's this word for it. I think it's called altruism, or some sort of word that describes exactly what you mentioned. Okay. I took psychology in college, and it said something about that. Do people do good to be good, or do people do good with another motive?
Absolutely.
Because even generosity, I mean, I had these conversations with a lot of people, even serving, even volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing it for the right reasons? Or
Right.
are we low-key trying to get a photograph of us volunteering and
Right.
then blasting that on social media? Look at me. I mean, shoot, we're all low-key guilty of that. But that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I think that also taps into expectations, managing expectations. Is I've been the worst in the last year. Is I was so heartbroken by people's lack of empathy. But then the more healing and therapy I received, I realized, no, Jane, that pain comes from yourself. You won't let go of these false expectations you had from people, coworkers, society. And so back to what you shared, when you do without expecting and when you are without expecting.
Yes.
There's so much divine peace in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you are what you are, you do what you do because you truly want to be it.
Exactly. It's amazing.
Wow. You took me to church.
And, and truly the people that I think that are very generous and very giving, you don't hear about it. They don't, they don't share it with people. Only the people that they have done that for knows, right? And God, obviously. But, it's not plastered everywhere else. Yeah.
The timing of our conversation right now is perfect because we all get a little arrogant when we come out of the dark, right? Life is full of ups and downs, ebbs and flows, and gains and losses, not just financially, but spiritually and emotionally. Because I was in a really dark place last year. And I remember just being full of anxiety, a lot of pain, a lot of depression, and moments I even questioned my life. And I think that came from seeking validation from the world around me. And I'm sure we've all been there where we just feel so jaded. But the thing is, when you give people that power, when you give people permission to qualify who you are, that is the ultimate risk, which is you might question your life. Am I good enough? Do I even belong here on this earth? So have you been in a time where, God forbid, because we all do this, where you seeked validation and you revolved your identity around someone? I mean, now it sounds pathetic, being wise, but when we were young and dumb, have you ever fell into that trap?
Absolutely.
You felt useless without someone or feel like there was no purpose?
Well, absolutely. I've traveled a long road to get to where I am now, this inner peace and serenity, right? But I was young and I'm human. It's tough to not be human, even if you gain kind of, you get on a different spiritual level, even with this practice that I do or whatever meditation that, people find themselves doing to be better, right? You get to a part, even in that practice, where you're still human. So sometimes you still react to things. But the good thing about what I do or the practice that I practice is like, you're able to turn it off right away because now you realize what you're doing. When you're younger, you say things or you do things and then, people are judging you and people are judging, or well, you think people are judging you. I mean, people are kind of judgy, but honestly, at the end of the day, now that I'm wiser, I'm like, people don't give a shit. They don't care, honestly. I mean, they may care for a second just to have something to talk about, or gossip about. But other than that, you're forgotten. So it's really not that big of a deal what society or what your neighbors or, what your peers think of you. But when we're younger, we care so much about that, right? What do I have? How do I look? What did I say? Oh my God, losing sleep, right? No, now, when you get wiser and more mature, you just don't really, care. Trying to be nice here. and try not to be gentille.
And I was going to say, even that word serenity, right? I know you mentioned that a few times, is that concept of surrendering. It's such a simple yet powerful concept. And I kid you not, maybe my soul was just preparing for you and preparing for this conversation, but I took mindful time to just let go.
Yeah.
I was like, God in the universe, today I'm just going to invite whatever comes my way.
Yes.
I went on a walk this morning, put some music that just spoke to my soul, and I was just daydreaming. I was here, but I was daydreaming and creating space for goodness. And even as we're evolving as people, that control freak in us, again, God laughs when we make plans, but it's so funny when we look back to even think that we thought we had control over everything.
Exactly.
How people react, how people respond. And like you mentioned, everyone's worried about surviving and worrying about their own life. They don't really care as much as we thought. And so I think insecurity is sometimes a made up thing that we experience. Self-sabotage as well are things that we create. And so when you ever had patterns of that, how did you snap out of it? Because now, like you mentioned, you're so conscious and aware where you could just snap out of it. But then when we didn't know, how did you come out of that? Because I was very guilty of self-sabotage.
Sure.
I was really guilty of feeling so insecure to the point of paranoia.
Right.
Like, oh, what are they going to think? They're not even caring about what you're wearing.
Not really.
But like when you went through those seasons and moments, how did you eventually come out of it?
Yeah, you just keep going, you know? I mean, you cry, you do whatever you have to do. And I mean, there wasn't any insightful moment that I can share with you. It was just going with it. That's all. Just go with the flow.
Now, I know you also mentioned you're from Texas and you have a beautiful blend of ethnicities in you. This drive, this spirituality, is it something that you had to discover and create, or did you have mentors or upbringing that also instilled that? Because it's very admirable.
Yes, thank you. So my mother is Buddhist, or was Buddhist. I'm sorry, she passed away in 2017. But her Buddhism was a lot different from what I'm practicing now. Her Buddhism was you go to the temple and the monks bless you and all that good stuff, right? You give them money, you give them food. This one is a different type of Buddhism. The philosophy is the same. The practice is just different. So that's why with this practice, I was able to get into it pretty easily. It is kind of weird though. Like if you look it up, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, it's strange at first because of the chanting. And the chanting is basically how you are speaking to the universe, right? So it's a sound, so it's different. It's very different. And it seems really weird. It took me like a month. Oh, and back to your question, I did have a mentor. So when I was introduced to this practice, I was at a crossroads in my life because I was engaged to a wonderful guy at that time, but I was young and I was in Vegas for only, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years. Partying, doing that whole Vegas thing. And we were supposed to get married. He kept telling me to set the date. We're already engaged. It was just the natural progression of how things go. You know, you're with someone for a while, you enjoy each other, and then you're living with each other or spending a lot of time with each other. So the natural progression was, okay, let's get engaged. And I said yes, not having a clue what I really wanted, or how my life was going to be or what I wanted in my life. I just kind of went with it. And I never set the date. And he's like, Gentille, are you going to set the date? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I never did. And so it got to the point where I was at that crossroad. I'm like, what do I do? Do I move forward with this relationship? I mean, I do love him. I do care. He's a wonderful person. But, we had a couple other differences at the time. I'm like, okay, are these differences enough for me to not move forward, right? So I had to to reflect, and I had to really think about it. And so at that time, a girlfriend of mine who was doing this practice, introduced me to it. And she says, look, she goes, just try this. She goes, I know you're at a crossroads right now and you need to make a decision in your life and it's really serious. So why don't you ask the universe for some guidance and direction? And I'm like, okay, well, what is it? And she's like, well, here's what this practice is. And that's how I started. So yes, once you start practicing Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, you become the mentor. So every time you introduce it to another person, which is called shakabuku, you become their mentor. So they come to you for all the insights, and all the philosophies and all that stuff, right? Yeah.
No, very powerful. And, that paying it forward, that ripple effect, it's such a beautiful feeling because people listening and watching, they've been on both sides of the spectrum. Maybe they were somebody that was in a crossroad, maybe making some big life changes, or the mentor that was guided through other spiritual leaders and being like, hey, maybe you should try this. It's worked for me. So it's so cool how you were able to be in that crossroads, but also have somebody that installed this amazing spiritual practice that gave you more clarity.
Yes.
And I believe that we have to be on both sides to really understand life.
Yeah.
What it's like to be stuck and unsure, but then also what life is like to finally have a relationship with the higher power, whether we call it God or the universe or both. And I truly believe when we're able to finally experience that realm, it is our duty to then share, motivate, and inspire people.
Absolutely, yes.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because even this podcast, at first I thought maybe this is just something for me, but when I realized, no, Jane, there's a reason you went through a dark time as well.
Yeah.
Now you're walking in the light, and it's important for you to share both sides. What life was like in the dark, but still understanding that it is a real thing, but also understanding how life does evolve when you choose the higher road of meditation, inner healing, therapy, doing a practice. Because if we didn't take that step, then we would all be living in the past and still stuck in those things, right?
There's so many people that are still there, though. But why were you going through your darkness, if I may ask? Was it from 2020?
Yeah, I would definitely say, nobody really asked me, so thank you. I'm like, wait, what?
If you like to share, you don't have to, but
But I would say in a nutshell, I mentioned I moved here only 2 years ago. So having this expectation already of, leaving friends and family, moving to Vegas, I thought it was going to be like Disney World. I thought I was going to just jump in as an extrovert, make all the right friends, have all the connections. But what it was is I didn't qualify people before I let them in my heart. And I was such a open book like yourself, but a little too extreme. I would meet you the first time and say, okay, we're going to go to dinner. You're going to be my best friend. I'm going to take you to church, all this stuff. And I don't think it's a bad thing if you're in the right room with the right people. But I didn't know how people were connected to maybe certain people. And I don't like to judge people's walk of life, but I definitely don't want to repeat my past, which is the party scene. And we all know Vegas. It's easy to get into the drugs, the alcohol, the bad friends. We all have those.
Yes.
And I didn't see the difference.
Oh, I see.
I just genuinely didn't. I think I was so hungry, call it thirsty. That's what they call it these days. But so desperate for friends. I didn't care if they were good or bad. I didn't care if they were drug dealers or stealing or doing bad things or dating or being cheating, whatever. Right. It was kind of like, I don't need to know your resume. I just need friends.
Yeah. Well, but that was part of your journey in discovering these people.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to know them until you hang out with them for a while, right? And then things start coming out.
Yes. So my trauma or my challenges, I think, comes from a very innocent place. It's not like I wanted to put pain on myself, but again, I couldn't manage expectations.
Yeah.
And I couldn't recognize that I was seeking validation from people.
Got it.
Being new to a city, especially in Vegas, you want to be around people that validate you. But if they're insecure or they're in toxic relationships, you're only going to get so much healthy validation and wisdom, right?
Exactly.
But like you mentioned, I think I really needed to go there and experience that to now see.
Yeah.
Like even to be able to connect with you on a deeper level and to feel this connection with you, I had to go through that.
Absolutely.
You have to get stuck in the dark sometimes to recognize, oh crap, I'm a light and I deserve to be in the light. I deserve to play in the light and I deserve to attract people who also want that same vision.
Exactly.
Because we both know at the end of the day, we can't baby or be a mother to people who are not our children.
Right.
If they want to stay on a certain path, then we have to respect that and be available. But I've learned, don't lower yourself or dim your light to comfort other people.
Right.
Maybe for a moment, but the more we stay there, we end up becoming the people we're around.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. They can drag you down as well if they're in the pits, right? But if they aspire to be better or they're trying to change their life, then maybe you are put in their path for that reason, for that period of time. Because now I feel that even the bad experiences that I've had, and I've had quite a few, I am grateful for those experiences, because those people and those experiences is what made me who I am now. I am this wise creature now, right? Or wiser, or because of those experiences. So I forgive. It took me a while though, but I have forgiven everyone that has hurt me. And obviously, I actually even pray for them now. Like, I pray for you to be happy and successful wherever it is you're at, because most of the people don't stay stuck there. I think most people aspire to be good or better wherever they're at in their life. Well, like we all have a phase and a stage, right? So when I meet people that are going through darkness, there was a reason that I feel that those people were put in my path. So I'm going to try to help them as much as I can, but they have to take it, they have to take the baton after I've already introduced them to things, right? And obviously, now that we're older and we're more mature, we can tell if a person wants to stay stuck there or not. But if they want to advance, then I'm always here to help.
No, and you're actually pointing something out that's very vulnerable and real, because I've learned as an extreme people pleaser, an extrovert, and a middle child, and a black sheep, there's something in me that wants to fix people. I get it from my mom, okay? So you're kind of calling me out right now, but I like it. It's fine. I'm like, I love this. Yeah, woman to woman. Let's talk about it. But I think that upbringing, again, it's nobody's fault. It's just me owning it and learning how to navigate through life in this way, is echoing what you shared. I've learned to honor and respect where everybody is, because every moment and season is divinely temporary. So just like the highest of the highest, it's temporary. Just like the lowest of the low, it's temporary, because we're always evolving.
Exactly.
And moving. So with your wise soul, I would love to know, how do you feel, perhaps feeling like maybe you are called to a higher place of leadership and mentorship? Because there has been seasons where I had to realize, Jane, stop looking for direction. Maybe people are looking up to you for direction. I know that's kind of a trippy spiritual concept that I'm talking about right now. But have you ever felt like maybe you were set apart? And I'm not talking about we're better than anyone, but I do feel like on earth, there are certain spirits and souls that were just truly called to lead and to mentor.
Yeah, I think the universe do bestow certain gifts on certain people. Now, I don't feel I'm that person. I do what I can in the small capacity that I do it. I don't know. And I'm really bad with public speaking anyway. So it's going to be really hard for me to actually give a speech to to a lot of people. And people have mentioned that before. I'm like, oh, I can't do it. I go in my small group of people, 3, 4, 5 people. Yes, I can, pass along some knowledge or wisdom. But other than that, no, not on a big scale. But there are people, I believe, that are truly gifted. And that is their purpose on this earth, is to educate, right? So yeah, I believe it. I think you might have that calling.
Listen, I'm learning. Even just as we're talking, I ask because I'm also asking myself. And when I first started the podcast, it was a very unexpected gift, because I asked God in the universe for healing. I truly said, can you create a path where I can finally heal, but heal others at the same time? And so when this podcast unraveled, even as you're asking me questions, I'm like, oh my goodness, Gentille, like this is so fascinating and beautiful, because I want to create win-win situations where we're both open. Not only am I going to leave this episode fulfilled and with more clarity, I hope and pray for all of the guests to feel that after is refreshed, not bombarded with questions that are not appropriate, but rather insight, perspective, and wisdom. And so, maybe pray for me. I would love to one day move into that. And I know it's always been something on my heart, but back to what we shared when I was young and dumb, I cared too much about what other people thought, and it crippled me. And I'm not shy, but it crippled me to the point where I became mute.
Oh.
I didn't want to raise my hand or I
Okay.
didn't want to volunteer because I was self-sabotaging my future essentially. So when you
we're all there, trust me. Yeah, you're not alone at all.
Yeah, so that gives me a lot of encouragement. But to switch gears for a moment, tell me how you got into real estate and just what your career is like in Vegas as a real estate agent and investor, like you said. Like, that's exciting.
Yeah. Oh, no, I love real estate. Love it, love it, love it. I will do it until the day I die. So I started investing about 30 years ago. I bought my first property at 19. I saved up every single penny. I knew then that I did not want to rent forever, right? I knew then. And I busted my butt and bought my first property. And I just kind of snowballed as far as real estate goes, one at a time. And then became, very successful with it as an investor. Now, when I came to Vegas, I decided to get my real estate license only because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to buy every single thing. Right? But I got my real estate license to be able to find those deals so I can save more money. Yeah, when you become an investor, when you start working for your money like really hard, you become more frugal, and you count the pennies, right? So that was the reason I got my real estate license, and I figured, okay, well, since I already have it, why don't I help other people with this journey, right? Buying and selling. So, and I love it. Vegas is such an awesome place because it's still very affordable compared to like California or other metropolitan cities, right? So because of that, we have 5,000 per month influx of people moving here. Yeah. So we're at like 70,000 in the last, year. Is that right? Yeah, 5,000.
Okay. No wonder there's
5,000.
no houses.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So our supply is low. So it's a great market because of the affordability of it. And I always tell people, look, if you can buy, do it. Don't rent, because what you pay for rent is almost double what a mortgage could be, especially now in this market because it's a seller's market because of the low inventory. So if you can buy, and then you can always use it as an investment. So you can live there for a little bit and then flip it. So that's what I do. Every single property that I have, I usually live it, or my primary, right? I always have one primary. I would live there for 3 to 5 years, and then I would flip it to make whatever, $1 million to five, whatever, and then upgrade.
What a fun game. It's like
it's amazing.
Monopoly in real life, right? Very strategic.
Yes.
I know people watching and listening right now, including myself, we are potentially preparing for being a first-time home buyer. And I don't want to talk too much real estate. However, I think we are in a very enlightening time where, back to what you shared about renting, it's just becoming ridiculous. I mean, especially if you're in a decent area, you're probably going to be spending minimum $2,000-$3,000 a month for something that is not yours. You're not going to get anything back, right? Nothing. So anytime that monthly rent comes, I'm like, oh boy, I love Henderson. I love the city. However, back to your point, I want to be able to invest in something that will eventually invest back, especially if I'm taking care of it, repainting and whatnot. So how does one even prepare, whether it's financially, mentally, how do you prepare to become a first-time home buyer? Because I hear it all, but if you were to just break it down to home buyer for dummies.
Sure. Financially would be the very first step of trying to get into the first home, right? Or being a first-time home buyer. So financially, credit is a big thing because obviously you're going to have to get a loan. So make sure your credit is 640 and higher. Shouldn't be that hard, right? 30% of your credit. So try to keep below 30% of what your credit amount is. So that will bring your score up too. B, make sure you're at a job for 2 years. Make sure you file your taxes. Make sure you show that you make income, right? Because you have to qualify for this loan. So 2 years at the same job, making whatever certain amount of money, 20, 30 plus $1,000, right? And so besides those two, what else? There was something else.
I was going to say, no, you're on track.
Down payment.
Ooh.
Yes, that's important too. Now, depending on the market, sometimes you can get the seller to pay some of the closing costs, but as a buyer, you're going to have your own closing costs. So the first loan would be FHA loan usually, and that FHA requires the least money down, which is 3.5%. So think about, so I always tell people, you know what, try to save up $10,000 to $20,000. That would be enough for a down payment for an FHA loan for a first home buyer. Now they do have grants. So when you're ready, let me know. I'll connect you with a lender, right? And then the lender can tell you about those grants and stuff like that for people that have certain income level that you can actually get help with the money down, the down payment. So yeah, so those are the three things, right? So credit, income tax, and money down. Those are the three main things before buying a first home.
No, I like the way you broke it down because now it feels more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people paint this giant monster of first-time home ownership. It seems very daunting.
Yes.
If you've never had one or
Absolutely.
you haven't had the right professional or expert to coach you.
Right.
They just say, oh, you need $500,000 to put down. It's like, well, I don't have that kind of money right now, especially after the pandemic and what has happened, right?
No.
I know most people did very well, but most people also lost a lot,
yes.
right? Including families, homes, finances, you name it. So is there anything that you would recommend for solo entrepreneurs or people who may be jumping around jobs? Because there's a lot of people right now, again, with the time that we're in right now, jumping jobs, unfortunately, is a reality. So what are we going to do if maybe they haven't even stayed at one job for a year?
Sure.
Like, what's the inspiration you have?
They have also stated income. So there's some lenders out there that will do stated income, meaning because when in Las Vegas, we have a lot of people in the service industry. So a lot of tips, right? So stated, but you have to show that you have that certain amount of money going into the bank account. And you still have to show the down payment as well. So for stated income, sometimes the interest rate could be just slightly more than FHA. And make sure you save that bundle of cash. Depending on the lender, you can deposit that cash into your bank account and wait for it to season. And it's usually about 3 months. So if you have a pile of cash, that's okay too, but you're going to have to deposit into your bank account at some point and let it season. And then you can do stated income. So it's possible. Yeah.
Okay. That's very good to know because especially Vegas, we know this. It's like a tip city where a lot of people run around different jobs, but the tips they receive is pretty much their income.
Oh yeah.
Right. They might be getting paid $10 an hour, but collectively they have cash hiding. So that's very good.
Yeah.
Now, what are kind of do's and don'ts in the home decision making? Because I like what you kind of touched on a spiritual aspect is, you could be driving down and being like, oh, I want that house or I like that house.
Mm-hmm.
I joke to people, I'm like Crazy Rich Asians meets country girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could do both extremes, but I don't know why I'm fixated on brand new.
That's okay.
And again, I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong, but for somebody who wants or prefers a new build, can you guide us? Because I know people watching and listening, they might say, well, I worked this hard. I don't want just a fixer upper. I want to move in where things are pristine and everything's new.
Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with that. It is definitely a preference. I've had clients that wanted only brand new because they want to pick their flooring, their colors, everything, right? It's custom to what you want. And also no one's passed away in it. That's the biggest thing for some of my buyers. Like, did someone die in here? Okay, well, if you're going to ask that question every single time, let's just go to brand new build because now we know no one's died in there unless it was buried on burial ground or something, right? So yeah, the deals are better though in resale, usually, depending on the market. But most of the time in every market, the new build are always slightly more expensive. And if you're okay with that and if you qualify for it, and that's fine, then remember, it's all custom to exactly how you want it, right? But as far as investment goes, return on income or return on investment goes, resale is always better, always, because it's always less, a little bit less. And if you have to do a fixer-upper of some sort, and sometimes the fixer-upper is not even that bad, honestly. I mean, maybe a few $1,000s, right? And sometimes if you invest just a few $1,000s into a house, you can make tens and twenties and $30,000. So it's like 100%, 1,000% on your investment. So it depends on what you're doing. I mean, obviously, or apparently, obviously the new build is also going to increase in price in the future, right? So you have to just kind of go with the market. So it just depends. But if it's a preference of yours, fine, do it. You know, at some point you can sell it and make money. You will. You know, it might take a little bit longer. Depends on how much it is you got it for. At the end of the day is how much did you buy it for? How much money did you have to put in it? And how much will it sell for in the future? That's the whole formula of investment.
Man, no, and it makes sense because you're an investor. It makes sense what you're sharing. So ultimately what I'm getting at is maybe for me, I might look at an old janky house like, why the hell would I move in there? Mm-hmm. But back to what you shared, the amount that you could get back is usually greater than a new build. Again, the pros of that is you get to customize everything. And of course it's new, no dead bodies.
Yeah.
But I see the angle you're going at as an investor or an investor mindset. If you want to get more out of something, take that leap of faith.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. That's a good point.
But also, you know, I mean, it's different from when you buy a place that you're going to live in. So to me as an investor, everything is an investment. Everything I buy is an investment. Cars, houses, everything. So if you have that mindset, it doesn't matter where that house is. Well, obviously if you're going to live in it, you're going to worry, or you're going to be concerned about where that house is because you want to spend some time in there, right? You want to feel good about where you're at. But yeah, as an investor, it doesn't matter where the property is at. As long as the price is right, you can it's all about making money as an investor. That's the point.
So well, I mean, let's be real. Everybody wants to get rich, or everybody wants to live a healthier, wealthier life. Mm-hmm. If you were to even coach me or people listening and watching, how does one even get into investments or to be an investor? Like, can you become an investor if you don't have much money? Because I feel like a lot of people, they see YouTube, they see TikTok, they see Instagram viral content like, hey, I just flipped a house and got $50 million. I mean, of course it sounds easy, but I'm like, Gentille, how do I get there? Like, yes, I want to go travel the world. That sounds great. I want to take a month off and go on a spiritual sabbatical and go talk to God. But how do you even get there for someone that maybe didn't even grow up around money or didn't have money talk? It's just not a thing.
That is a loaded question because as an investor or in real estate, period, there's so many aspects of real estate that you can get into. You can make money everywhere, right? Are you an investor? Are you a property manager? You're an agent? Are you a builder? So many different aspects, but it all starts with some money. You cannot get into investment of any sort without any type of money. So you have to have that. A little, I mean, it doesn't have to be a lot. Like I said, for first-time home buyers, that is your first investment. Buy that with your loan that you can qualify for, live in it for whatever, 2-3 years as you're saving up for that next one, right? And then when the market is good, you sell it and then you make that income from it, or the return, I'm sorry. Yeah. So you make that return that you can snowball into the next one, and then you keep doing that, and after a while you can have a separate house, and then you can have this snowball of funds that you can use just for investment. Even at 1 or 2 per year, you can make 50,000 to 100,000 or even more within that 1 year. That can be your extra income while you have your house that you're living in, right, or your place, whatever it is. I just lost my train of thought.
No. Even as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay.
But also, okay, so if it's your first time, you're going to need some guidance. You're going to need someone that knows what they're doing that can help you with that first house anyways. That first home buyer experience, you're going to need an agent to help you. Now, if that agent is like myself and I'm an investor, then I can help you into the investment side of it. But if you're just going to maybe buy one, then you can go with a regular agent that doesn't know anything about investing. So sufficient and educated guidance is probably the most important thing for your first investment.
I'm laughing inside because, little did you know, you thought you were just a podcast host, but as you're talking, I'm like, I trust you. I feel comfortable with you. When I'm ready, we're going to have that talk because I have always seen myself investing, and it's not like I grew up with investors, but I've always had this drive to build, rebuild, multiply. And back to what we shared earlier about money, power, it's about using that for good.
Yes.
And again, I'm not saying I'm a saint, but I've always had this desire to coach, teach, preach, share, and being an extrovert, I just know that I have this voice, but I have to use it for good. So same with money, same with power. This is why even this moment right now, I'm being very mindful on how I'm flowing and how I'm utilizing this podcast, because the moment I forget the why, then back to even what we shared about manifestation and alignment, God's going to say, oh, really? You think this is the Jane show? No, I'm using this as a platform to drive people to hope, faith, healing, enlightenment, whether we're talking about a career in real estate, investing, whether we're talking about emotional intelligence, boundaries. Like, I know this is going to be a life-changing platform and I don't want to lose it. However, to continue my success in showing up the way I do, I want to have financial freedom. I mean, who doesn't want to? I know some people might think, okay, Jane, you're a little vain. Am I vain? I want to not care about when the next dollar comes in.
Yeah.
God forbid my loved ones are sick. I want to be able to provide for them. So that's where like my heart posture is, because I remember growing up, I've always been drawn to just like the nicer life, and I played golf. So I'm just used to a certain pace. But I know sometimes when, one decides to live a healthy, wealthy, luxurious life, it could turn people off. Like, oh, you must love that vanity. I'm like, no, I'm actually a very chill person, but I love makeup. I love beauty. I love fashion. I mean, shoot, if I could pretend I was in a fashion show every day, I would do that,
that's amazing.
But I think it's because I had two older brothers that humbled me. So I think that's where my like self-sabotage comes from, is like, I think I'm pretty cute, but not that cute. It comes from my brothers, just humbling me. But anyhow,
there's nothing wrong with vanity. That's confidence.
Balance. Okay. I think you get me because we own our space.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. If you look good and whatever it is that you have to do to make yourself feel good, do it. If that entails you dressing up and putting on makeup and looking gorgeous every day, or looking like you're on a runway, do it.
I love it.
Who cares what everyone else is saying? I don't care. This is my confidence.
No, and I love that too, because I didn't see your Instagram till I met you, and then I remember seeing just a couple photos, and I'm thinking, gosh, I really love your energy, because you just show up in a way where exactly what we're talking about. You want to wear a sexy silk blue dress and you're going to own it. Or you want to walk around in lingerie, you're going to own it. And I really admire that, because you invite yourself to live in that free spirit realm. But then even through your reality, you're inspiring people like me to do the same. Like whether I'm 20, 30, 40, 50s, heck, even 80s, obviously don't hurt anybody with your beauty, but own your greatness.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have one life, so it's so important for us to do the things that bring us joy.
Absolutely. And you're not going to satisfy and make everyone happy. There's always going to be some Debbie Downers out there, the judgy, whatever. What is there a word for like judgy people?
Gosh, we need
Judgy
a name for
George
them. Judge
or something.
Judy or something.
Judgy Judy's. Yes. Yeah. There's always going to be those people. And, even on my social media, when I post certain things, sometimes, I have fans that'll be very negative. And how I respond to them now, if I even choose to respond, I mean, it doesn't even bother me. I'll look at them and go, whatever, right? But if I choose to respond, which I do on occasion, I make it so sarcastic. Like, oh my God, like I'm so sarcastic. They don't say anything back, because it just, so you can't please everyone. You can't. So just be yourself and be proud of who you are, period.
Yeah, no. And thank you for just that encouragement. Even though you're the guest, I'm like, I needed that back. I'm like, oh, it's so nice, because I've always been the doer, the giver, the encourager, the golf coach, always helping all the athletes succeed. But we forget that even the strong, we need to be checked into. And so, you know, there's deeper topics that we'll definitely talk about in the next episode I have you back on. But, you know, suicide is a big thing. People who are just living in the dark quietly is a big thing right now. And so I try to be very mindful. As much as we are resilient, wise, brave, and spiritually enlightened, we still should check in with each other. So even for you to even ask me, like, how are you? Or like that sad season you had last year. Tell me more about that. Like, thank you for that. Because we get in this autopilot of just seeing people on social media, seeing bits and pieces and assuming we're always happy or we're always good. It's just, we're going to have hiccups and it's okay.
Absolutely.
So
it's life.
Yeah.
We're always going to have challenges until the day we die. The only thing, like I said before, is how do we let it affect us? That's it. That's the only thing we can control, right? And well, here's my problem with, you know, and that's why I'm still single too, because I don't have too much vulnerability. And I get it. You know?
I'll force you, don't worry.
This
is step one.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. Like I never feel that vulnerable. And I sometimes I don't feel I'm too feminine either. So with my femininity, maybe I need to work on that. And it's been tough for me in the dating scene because of that part, because maybe I'm so confident. And when I meet people, I say exactly what I want to say. There's no filter, right? So, but as a woman, I think sometimes you have to filter some things you say, and then you have to maybe not say certain things. But I'm totally the opposite. And maybe that's why I'm single, but I'm okay with being single too. I'm very happy.
No, and thank you for just keeping it real with us. And a lot of people watching and listening, they can relate. I mean, even for me, as I get wiser, I try to dress more feminine, but by nature, growing up with boys, playing sports, not being seen for beauty, I didn't need to sexualize myself. You know, I love school, I love learning, so I was a nerd. And so I can understand where you're coming from, and I know a lot of people can relate, especially in the city of Vegas. We're so used to the boobs, the butt, the hair, the face, and that's okay. But when they meet someone so resilient like yourself, it's like, wait a minute, who is this woman? Like, she's beautiful, but wait a minute, she's like firm as like a cement wall. Like, she's not leaving herself, but it's good. It's just, you know, it's better than the other extreme where you're just blown away with the wind or you just change because you don't feel like you're good enough. And so I think, you know, we can learn so much from each other. And even as we navigate in the city, I think you're going to also inspire more women to tap into how you naturally are. And as you flow in your daily life as well, God in the universe, you know, as long as you believe and you are open to receive or be receptive, at least, you'll meet other feminine women that maybe can inspire you in some ways. And it's a mutual flow. Yes. Because nobody's perfect. It's yin and yang. My weakness is your strength. Your weakness is what I can do naturally. So I think as long as we are mindful of what we lack, it's not to say it's a bad thing, but how can we maybe invite a little bit more of that in our life? Right. Because I need to be more like you. I'm too vulnerable and I'm like an egg. It's hard on the outside, but once you start chipping at it, I just melt in your hands. So you don't want to be too fragile either. Right. So it's finding that balance, I think. Right. Right.
Well, I think for a woman, they say you need to be soft on the outside and hard on the inside.
Gosh, that's confusing, but that makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
that's what they say. And I'm the opposite. I have so much masculinity that I'm kind of the opposite. And
but I live for it. I am not mad at it. I think that's why when I met you at that event, you just looked at me and I looked at you back. I'm like, you don't know me, but here's my candle and a card. You're probably like, amazing. You're so goofy. But in that moment, I invited it because I can handle it. So I think in the same breath, whether it's the dating life, the romantic life, even girlfriends, people who are open and willing to invite that energy, I think that we will always feel loved, seen, and comforted. but it's when they don't have that space or confidence or even security to invite people like us, then sure, it makes sense that it doesn't work out or people walk away or just people don't stay around for too long.
Right.
So somebody wise told me this once because I always thought that I was too much or too loud or too vocal. And somebody said, Jane, it's not that you're too much. Maybe they're not enough. And it's not that your light is too bright. Maybe their light is just dim. So even that reality, it's all about perspective shifts. So, you know, as we talked about all the things, right? Reality TV, love, real estate, how to invest. As we kind of come to an end as well, for now, what's your favorite way of self-care and rest and recovery? Because I feel like that's huge. I know you said you love sleeping.
I sleep
but
a lot.
What's like your main things of rest and recovery?
Sleep, yoga. So I do yoga and Pilates 3 times a week, and the meditation. I'm very bad with like upkeep, you know, so nails, hair and stuff. I'm terrible. I'm, you know, in this respect, I'm kind of like a guy, you know. So yeah, rest, meditation, and find something, you know, exercise, you know, whatever it is, whatever you want to do. And even with meditation, find something that you enjoy that corresponds with you, or that, you know, that you do, that makes you feel good. Can't find the right words. I'm terrible. Jesus. But
you're doing great.
You know, my expressions are horrible. Yeah, you're so good.
I'm forcing
you're
you
so
to be
fluid.
vulnerable.
You're so amazing. Yeah, so those are the 3 main things, but I do sleep quite a bit. I'm like 10 to 12 hours a day. It's amazing. I've always slept a lot, and I'm like a cat.
Yeah. Well, that's why you look so well rested. I'm like, dang, you look like you're on vacation, like that vacation sleep.
Oh, good.
You're right.
White. No. Really white, though, because it's not outside. I'm sleeping in my bed.
I love it. You're like, I get enough time for rest and recovery. Well, that's refreshing, because a lot of workaholics, a lot of busy bees, they don't sleep enough.
Yeah.
At the end of every episode, I like to ask all the guests if you could share 3 life lessons or 3 lessons you would tell your younger self.
Oh gosh.
What would that be? You're like, dang, land the plane.
Oh geez. Yeah. No, I don't think that was something you text me, so I didn't even think about that. 3 things I would tell my younger self. Oh gosh. 1, let it go. That definitely, when I was younger, I had such a hard time with that. It was so tough for me to get over things. It took me years to get over a trauma, you know, or certain people, or, you know, or what people said or did to me. So letting go, learn to just let go, right? And not let those things affect you, because you can hang on to something for, you know, forever, right? What else? Invest? No, I don't know. I don't know if I could have invested sooner.
You're like 19. Not 19, 14.
Start at 10. Save your money. Save your money. Try to save or put something away. 10%. So they say multi-millionaire or even billionaires, they only spend 10% of their income. Only 10%. The rest is put away. I mean, I don't know how true that is, you know, but I just started saving, you know, in my 30s. But if you can, start sooner, your 20s. Yeah, because they said if you put away $100 in your 20s, by the time you're 65, you would have had, $1.5 million just from $100 a month.
Okay,
yeah.
Not too late.
Yeah,
not too late.
Not too late at all. I mean, you're only, in your 30s?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Start now,
okay,
girl.
fine. You really kick me in the butt. You're like, it's time. It's
just
time.
Put it away and don't look at it.
Okay.
Right? Don't look at it at all.
Perfect.
Don't go into it even in your, you know, biggest emergency. Just wait.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay.
Remember, it's gone.
Okay.
Number 3, what would that be? I would maybe have taken better care physically of myself, because I was such a tomboy that I, you know, played like a boy. So I have all these bruises and scars, if you will, in a lot of part of my body, which is not very pretty right now, and that I'm older and, you know, more refined. So those are the three things I would tell my younger self.
No, I love that. Yeah, that really covered a lot of different aspects of life. So thank you for sharing.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm super grateful for just our conversation today. I feel like an hour and some change just flew by. But I feel like back to alignment and just showing up for ourselves. We invite things that are good for us as long as we are intentional about it. So thank you for such a it was a very fueled conversation.
Yeah.
And I know that people watching and listening, a lot of takeaways.
Okay.
So I'm going to make sure that, people who have any questions, we'll link all your links below, whether it's your Instagram, any website, any way we can support you.
Great.
I'm already brainstorming. Okay, when I'm ready, I want to definitely have a conversation about investments and putting down some money for a home because I want to get like you. I know it's not too late, but I think you've really inspired me that no matter what our past was, it's not too late.
It's never
we can
too
make
late.
a change now.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your heart, your soul. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This was such a juicy yet very meaningful conversation. And if you guys have any questions or want to hear more from her, we'll have her back. So don't be shy. And until next time, protect your peace, and we'll see you in the next episode.